If you want to know the best way to manage your garden or green space to get the most in terms of wildlife, then I strongly recommend you stick around for the rest of this video. Well, hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Wild Your Garden. And in this video we are going to be talking about the best way that you can manage your garden or green space to benefit wildlife the most. So how can you manage particularly your longer grassy areas, your meadows, for the benefit of wildlife, so that you make sure you're not harming any creatures when you are managing these spaces? Because after all, a meadow is a man-made feature. It's something that in time would revert to woodland. So a meadow is something we need to manage in order to keep floral diversity, but there's best ways in which you can do this that I'm going to talk to you about today. Now, today is the 1st of May, which in the UK in particular means one thing, hopefully, and that is that many of you will stop mowing your green space and put the mower in the shed and leave it there. Now, I'm not going to talk solely about No Mow May today or at any length, because I've already done a previous video about the No Mow May and the concept behind it and why I think you should be adopting a No Mow Summer as opposed to a No Mow May. And I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one, so do go and check that out, because there's some vital information there that I want you all watching this to have. So it really is a good way of helping our wildlife, but of course there are risks and I think some ambiguity around when you should then start mowing again. If you're letting your lawn or green space grow for the month of May, what happens then in June, July and August? And in that previous video I talk all about this, so do check that out. But here we are at the start of May, and I wanted to start by saying that there is still a lot of ambiguity out there around this topic, and it's something that I'm obviously trying hard and have been doing for the last 4 years to give everybody watching this and everybody who subscribes to the channel the information that the No Mow May concept is something that we need to move away from, and we need to adopt a No Mow Summer. So for those of you that are regular viewers, you'll have heard me banging on about a No Mow Summer for many a year, so hats off to you if you're already doing it. I know you know the best practice already, but this video is also hopefully going to help you expand your No Mow Summer and make the absolute best, put the icing on the cake if you like, in terms of how you can manage your garden for wildlife. And on the topic of No Mow May, I would like to just quickly say that I have been in touch with Plant Life, the charity who started the concept back in 2019 with the view to encouraging more people to have longer grassy areas and meadows in their own back garden, which I think is just brilliant. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that my own 20 square metre front garden has just under 3 square meters of wildflower meadow. So it's a great way of starting what you guys could have as a wildflower meadow within your own garden. You don't have to have vast acres of space to have a wildflower meadow. They can be quite small, and the whole concept behind Plant Life's No Mow May was to try and encourage people, and I think it's great. And I again want to emphasize that I'm not having a go at Plant Life or anybody for coming up with the hashtag. I think it's a really good way of getting people into wildlife gardening and then hopefully climbing up the ladder to develop their garden into an entire wildlife garden and an entire ecosystem for wildlife. However, I have been in talks with them, and I will be speaking to them shortly about how we can move forward to try and hopefully move towards a more permanent structure within a garden. And of course it's something that I've been trying to champion for a little while, which is obviously the No Mow Summer concept. So just wanted to let you know, balls are in motion. I am at it, guys. I'm working on it, and I promise you I will update you as soon as there is something to bring you. Hopefully we can have a little bit of a change, just a tweak. That's all I'm after, is a tweak in what I think is a really great idea. So stay tuned to the channel for that one. More information coming soon. Now, before we go on, I would just love to say a huge thank you to all of you out there who have subscribed to the channel. This morning I woke up and was really pleased to find that we had hit 70,000 subscribers on the channel. So that's 70,000 of you beautiful people within 4 years of this channel starting in April 2000, just around about when lockdown started. So yes, really am so chuffed, and thank you so much to you all. If you share the videos, if you even just like the videos, so many of you comment, of course, and I do my best to keep up with those, but if you share the videos and like the videos, it really helps spread the algorithm further into the depths of YouTube, so that we can help reach more people and inspire and educate more people to be able to create more habitats for wildlife, which is the main ethos behind this channel. It's the main reason I started this channel 4 years ago, was to try and help you guys out there watching this to have all the information that you need to create vital habitats for wildlife. Because let's face it, there are lots of stories of death and destruction, and certainly in the UK, with 74% of our land now being under agricultural practices, then it really means our wildlife gardens, our green spaces, every square inch counts. So the more we can help wildlife in our own gardens, which are fast becoming a refuge for the wildlife of this countryside, the better it will be for wildlife, hopefully. Now, I know you can't house lots of different forms of wildlife. You're not going to get wild hares coming into your back garden if you're in the middle of London, but there are still many ways you can help. And obviously this channel hopefully has a video for you. It doesn't matter where you are, what you're trying to achieve with your garden, so go to the videos tab on the home page and have a scroll through till your heart's content. There's over 300 videos on there now that I've produced about many different topics. And also, if you are a subscriber, don't forget to hit that notification bell as well, then you won't miss a single video, which is every Sunday at 6 p.m. and when I can during the week, but also shorts as well. Tune into the shorts when you can. There's some cool stuff that I'm pushing out on there at the moment to give you some extra bonus content. And speaking of bonus content, it relates to this bank holiday weekend. So this weekend I'll be releasing a video that is, I think, much anticipated, which will be a full tour of a very special place that I visited last year. And it's going to be a garden tour of some amazing gardens, which are really beautiful, and they are 250 years old. A private garden that I've just done a little bit of a teaser short on the other day. So do stick around for that video coming this bank holiday weekend on the Monday. It's a bit of an epic. I'm yet to edit it, but it is going to be coming this Monday, this bank holiday Monday. So stay tuned to the channel for that. And of course, if you press the notification bell, you will get a notification when it comes up. But let's get back to the task in hand, which is talking about the best way in which you can help wildlife in your own garden, the best way you can manage your green space. And before I go into the depths of that, I would just like to explain a little bit of the history behind why long grass in a garden is such a controversial topic. So a little bit of history as to why longer grassy areas and a no-mow summer patch, if you like, within your garden have been seen as a little bit controversial for centuries, and I mean centuries. Now stay with me on this, because I promise it will give you some good info and a bit of background as to why we are where we are with our gardens and how they should, in our minds, be looking today, and how I would like to change that, and how you guys no doubt are already going against the grain and doing exactly what I'm suggesting you do, which is having some areas of longer grass. Now, it all started in around about the 1700s, when landed gentry took it upon themselves to try and have as much mown lawn as possible. So they would employ many people, many men and women with scythes to come and keep that lawn looking absolutely pristine. And it was seen as a sign of wealth. It was aspirational. So the bigger the area of mown grass you could have, the more wealth you had, because the more people you had to employ to maintain this space, the more people you had to employ to remove weed species such as dandelions. Now, for those of you that have been watching the channel for a while will know, weeds are no such thing in my vocabulary. A weed is merely a plant in the wrong place, and times are changing, and it's something that I did address with the RHS a little while back. I'm still not finished with that, but yes, things are moving. So yes, but removing these weed species from your lawn was seen to then be a nice green blank canvas, and something that was obviously the landed gentry could only afford. So the other reason, of course, is because most people at that time, every square inch of their garden, they were looking to grow their own vegetables, fruit, they had chickens. Obviously they were fending for themselves, so if they were fortunate enough to have a piece of land, that's what they were doing with it. They were producing their own crops so that they could feed themselves, so they couldn't afford to have areas of vast mown lawn. So again, reiterating that to have mown lawns was actually aspirational in those days. Now at the time, of course, there were no such things as petrol lawn mowers, and the cylinder mower, the walk behind little push mower with a little cylinder on the front that I remember my father using when I was a child, these weren't invented till around about the 1830s. So even then they were obviously quite aspirational in terms of a piece of machinery, and they were no doubt expensive to buy, so the general folk like you or I would not have been able to afford one. So again, it was still aspirational to have a mown lawn. So of course, when we emigrated to the USA, it meant that this concept travelled with us. So again, the landed gentry there would pay people to manage their green spaces, and it wasn't until around 1893 that the first steam-powered lawnmower was actually invented, which was quite a big, cumbersome piece of kit, and I don't think it really caught on very well. And then after that, of course, it meant we had the Victorians as well. So the Victorian era, or at the same time I should say, the Victorian era were also pushing these concepts in terms of landscape design through people such as Capability Brown, who was obviously a well-known landscape designer, who would emphasize the need for lawn areas as a sign of wealth, as a sign of a beautiful garden, along with these beautiful arboretums, which is why you get a lot of arboretums with trees that are around sort of 150 to 200 years old, because this was the time that people were planting lots of specimen trees from all around the world to create these beautiful arboretums, of which I'm very grateful for now, because of course it means that we get to go and see these beautiful and magnificent trees that we perhaps wouldn't have seen because they aren't classed as native in today's world. Then of course in the early 1900s, the good old Suffolk petrol lawnmower was invented, which were a thing of beauty, I think. I remember working for a few elderly clients of mine when I was in my formative gardening years who had one or two of these stashed away in a corner of a shed that hadn't been used for years, and I just remember looking at them thinking, wow, what a piece of engineering. So when these came to light, obviously it meant that there was a more mechanical way of maintaining these green spaces, so it was more cost effective if you could afford the initial outlay of one to manage your lawn, and they became aspirational. And then as we moved into the kind of the mid 1900s, things like DDT were starting to be branded as a pesticide to start to protect your lawn and start to make your lawn as green as possible. And obviously, as we went into the 60s, then we had the early fly mow mowers, which of course were again designed to basically push the image and the idea that to have a mown lawn was still aspirational, it was still the done thing. And that's why so much money, if you think about over the last century, how much money has been spent on making sure we keep towing the line and keeping our lawns neat, pristine and tidy. It's an astronomical amount. And of course, if you think about it as well, the weed killers that are still branded today, things like Roundup and many others, what's the one plant that you see often on the front of this bottle? The beautiful little yellow dandelion. Poor old dandelions, they don't half cause some controversy, don't they? But yes, the dandelion, unfortunately, is branded as a weed, which is why so many people are loath to see them within their beautifully clipped mown lawns. So you start to get the idea behind why it's been ingrained in us for so long to have a mown lawn. Well, if you ask me, I think now's the time for change, and I'm so glad that so many of you are already doing this, because you can have in your garden a different approach. And if you ask me, it's now aspirational to have a wildflower meadow, certainly from my perspective anyway. I know I might be slightly biased, but that's that's certainly my opinion. So fast forward now to today's world, and any garden centre that you visit, well, not any, but probably most, of the garden centres that you visit and things like the Home Depot stores in the States, anything like this, Walmart, B&Q in the UK, I guarantee you will find row after row after row of products that are designed to keep our lawn and our garden tidy. Now, these are going to be everything from lawnmowers, trimmers, pesticides, herbicides, you name it. Every kind of product that has currently been thought of is going to be on these shelves, I've no doubt, to encourage you to try and maintain a neat and tidy space, which is often viewed as the norm until now. So let's try and change that norm, because I really believe we have to. If we want to preserve the wildlife that is left wherever you are around the world, we have to start changing the way we manage our gardens and green spaces. We can't do a lot about what goes on in the wider landscape, you know, with the landed gentry of today and farmers. You can't have much of an influence on what goes on in that kind of a setting. However, you can be the custodian of your own little mini oasis, and that's why I'm here to help give you all the information. So that to one side, just going back to the products for a moment, you start to see now why it's such an enormous, massive industry in which people are trying to keep gardens maintained. So that's why they've got to keep peddling the message that you need a tidy lawn. You can't be seen to be having longer grassy areas because, oh, what would the neighbours think? Well, pardon my French, sod the neighbours. I don't care what my neighbours think, and you shouldn't either. At the end of the day, it's your space and you should do what you want with it, because I really think it will benefit you mentally. It will bring a sense of well-being to your lives if you have a wildlife garden. And for those of you that have already got a wildlife garden, you can no doubt leave a comment below and just explain to anybody new to this concept just how beneficial a wildlife garden can be in terms of just making you smile. Every time I come home from work at this time of year, I look in that front garden of mine and I just think, wow, what a little oasis. It's only a small patch of heaven for me, but it is a little oasis for wildlife with so much life. Anyway, I've digressed slightly, but I've also given you the chance to hopefully understand a bit of the background as to why we are where we are, why lawns are peddled so much or have been until recent years, and why there is such a massive industry in keeping our gardens neat and tidy. And my advice to you would be, don't be a sheep, pardon the pun, actually pun intended. Don't keep with the neat and tidy brigade. Step aside from that. And right now, at this point, thank you for watching. I'm going to explain to you how you're going to manage your garden for the best results for wildlife. Now, before anyone says anything and tells me off for telling them what to do with their own back garden, if you've watched the No Mow May video, you'll see that I absolutely state that it's not obligatory. You can mow your garden. Please, if that's what you want to do, mow your lawn. I'm not telling you to stop doing that. It's not my space, it's your space. So do what you like with it. I'm just merely giving you the information that you need to provide the best habitats for wildlife. Now, because a couple of people did sort of have a little bit of a pop at me last time, I think, funnily enough, they were garden maintenance people. So yes, telling me what a load of rubbish No Mow May is and the concept of a no mow summer. I'm not interested in trying to debate that. I'm just purely interested in getting a message out there and trying to change perceptions on what a garden should be in today's world and today's climate. Now, many of you will know that a no-mow summer is beneficial for wildlife. For those of you that don't, I strongly recommend you try a little patch. Now, it doesn't matter if you've got 1 square metre, 3 square metres or 3,000 square metres. This is going to be absolutely pivotal in how much wildlife comes into your garden. Now, in previous videos, I've talked about the wildlife pond or a wildlife pond being the best habitat for wildlife, and I still stand by that. It is astounding what turns up to a body of water if it's planted right, if it's the right shape and size, and they can be all shapes and sizes, of course, but any form of water is going to be better than none. However, I would also like to today make the claim that having a wildflower meadow or a no-mow summer area within your garden is going to be up there level with a wildlife pond in terms of how much wildlife it attracts. Now hear me out, because it's going to attract things like your obvious species, dragonflies and damselflies, because once they've emerged from a pond, they will then be moving into areas where there are meadows, because there's going to be lots of insects associated with these longer grassy areas, because inside these longer grassy areas you're going to have lots and lots of invertebrates which are going to call this home. It's shelter, it's cover, it's food. So not only are the damselflies and dragonflies going to benefit because they're going to be hunting for insects over these areas, you're also going to get your common species that you'll find in a wildlife pond, such as your frogs, your toads and your newts, migrating into longer grassy areas throughout the summer months, because once they've bred within a pond, they're then going to want to go off and hunt. They don't spend their entire 12 months of the year in a wildlife pond. Once they've bred, once they've carried out that part of their life, then they will move into some areas of vegetation where they can then hunt for invertebrates to eat, of course. So your frogs, your toads and your newts are going to benefit. Not only that, you're going to get small mammals such as voles and mice. They're going to move in because it's a great little habitat for them. They can eat the invertebrates associated with a longer grassy area, and they can also make their home there, which in turn is going to attract things such as foxes to hunt. It's going to attract, if you've got bigger areas or you're on the edge of a meadow, if you're on the edge of a town, things like barn owls, kestrels, little owls, tawny owls. All these nocturnal species are going to be attracted to your longer grassy areas to hunt themselves, and hedgehogs as well. They're going to want to forage through longer areas of grass because it's full of invertebrates. So hedgehogs, foxes, badgers, barn owls, tawny owls, little owls, kestrels, they're all going to benefit. And talking of nighttime creatures, moths are obviously butterflies of the night, and they do a wonderful job of pollinating some of our wildflowers here in the UK and of course around the world. In this country alone, we have 56 native species, resident species of butterfly, but we've got 2,500 species of moth. So imagine how important they are for pollinating our plants. So it doesn't just stop at what you see during the daytime. Your plants are being pollinated while you're asleep in your bed. So they really are a vital part of the ecosystem. And if the moths are there, they're going to be attracting the bats as well, and the bats are going to be coming in, eating these moths that are obviously gorging on the flowers within your wildflower meadow. And while the bats are in the area, if you've got bat boxes up for them and you've got sufficient habitat for them, then they are going to be eating the mosquitoes as well at dawn and dusk, because they can eat up to something like 2,000 to 3,000 mosquitoes a night. So if you have bats, they're a great way of combating any mosquitoes that might be associated with the wildlife pond. So it's just wonderful, and all of this is from a little wildflower meadow. Now I know it might be hard to fathom, but trust me, I've witnessed it, I've experienced it, and hopefully many of you have as well. And of course birds are going to visit, so things such as blackbirds, robins, song thrush, mistle thrush, that's just in the UK, they're all going to visit longer grassy areas because they can again hunt for those invertebrates within the meadow. And as I've said before, it all starts with the plants. I know people say it all starts with insects and they're the bottom of the food chain, but if you don't have the plants that attract the insects aren't going to turn up. So if you have the plants there, I firmly believe it starts with the plants, and a wildflower meadow, an almost summer area, is absolutely the way to go if you want to start having as much wildlife as possible visit your garden or green space. Now, how do you manage it? And this is the million-dollar question nestled right in the depths of this video, and thank you for sticking with me to this point. But hopefully you can see why I've gone in a roundabout way of explaining to get to this point. Hopefully it's made sense. How you manage your space is just as key as to the plants that are there themselves. Now obviously a lot of you watching this, if it's the first time you're thinking about letting your lawn grow, remember you don't have to just let your entire garden grow. And the key message in this entire video, if you take nothing else from this point onwards, just remember a mosaic MOW. See what I did there? I know, sorry, it's a bit cheesy, but it works, I think, and I really want this to catch on. A mosaic of habitats is absolutely the best way to manage your garden or green space, because the more habitats you can create, the more habitats you can fit into your garden, which is why I designed my 20 square metre front wildlife garden. And check out the videos, go onto the My Garden playlist, have a look at some of the videos of that if you haven't seen any. A mosaic of habitats is the best way to help wildlife, the best way you can attract wildlife to your garden. But mowing, the mosaic hashtag that I'd like to get established for itself, is to have differing areas. So have some mown lawn. And again, a point I should make is a mown lawn is not necessarily a bad thing, because if you have what I would class as a nectar lawn, it's basically a mown lawn, but it's cut on a high setting. So you raise the deck of your mower up as high as it will go. Plants such as bird's foot trefoil, self-heal, red clover, daisies, lesser celandine, dandelions, of course. I do love having a good dandelion war on Twitter, it's fantastic. Or X as it's now known. I do love pushing this message. So have a nectar lawn. I appreciate many people have dogs, they have kids. I've got both, and it's not very productive trying to have a wildflower meadow in your back garden with 3 big dogs, I can assure you. That's why I put a little fence across to try and keep some kind of a sanctuary and keep Frank and Luna from trampling all over my precious wildflowers around the wildlife pond in my back garden. But have yourself different areas within the garden. So have some lawn, because also birds such as pied wagtails, wood pigeons, robins, blackbirds, starlings, they're all going to come and feed. Starlings in particular will want to probe through the grass to try and find the grubs, the leather jackets if you like, the little grubs in your lawn that then go on to turn into the crane flies or the daddy long legs if you like in time, which is absolutely, I saw my first one this year the other day. So absolutely brilliant to see those. And of course they're foraging on short bits of grass, because it's easier for them to find these grubs rather than wading through vast swathes of grass. So birds such as these are going to visit a short piece of grass, and it really is beneficial for them. Things like green woodpeckers, they're going to be foraging for ants if you've got a bigger section of lawn. There's so many birds that will be on a short section of lawn. So sections of lawn that are mown are not a bad thing. I'm not against them, I'm actually for them, and that's part of this mosaic habitat that we're trying to create. Then move on to your no-mow summer patch. That in itself I've explained a lot about, but then you could also go on. The next question I get asked a lot is people say, well, what do I do? What do I cut it all out? Well, actually no, leave some margins, leave some areas of what I would call tussock grass that is just left year round, because there's so much wildlife that's going to benefit from being in this longer grass as cover, as habitat, as a food source. A lot of our butterfly species will overwinter at the bases of grasses in terms of the larvae, the caterpillars that is. So the more of this you can have, the more area it is for wildlife to have a bit of a home over winter. If it's just flat and cut wall to wall, there's no cover, there's no habitat for these invertebrates and your mammals. Things like frogs, toads and newts on warmer days in the winter time, they'll come out of hibernation to actually go and hunt. So it's a great hunting ground for them as well. And also if it's a bigger area, if it's the edge of a field, then you know your kestrels, your barn owls, they still need to eat through the winter time. They can come in, they can hunt through these longer grassy areas. So having an area that's left all year round is absolutely key, I think, in the success of a very good wildlife garden. And it's certainly going to benefit many species, as we've just talked about. And not only that, having areas of longer grass is going to absolutely help create a microclimate in your garden, because longer areas of grass, if you put your hand down into them compared to short mown grass, it's so much cooler. So it's really great at not combating climate change, but helping to keep temperatures cooler. And certainly having more trees, more shrubs in your garden is going to help shade parts of the garden and keep that microclimate of your garden at a better temperature, a more appropriate temperature. If you remember the incredible heat we had a couple of years ago here in the UK, it got to 41.3 degrees, which was just too hot for me. And of course, if you've got grass that's this long, the ground's going to get baked. Your larvae of any caterpillars aren't going to make it because the plants are going to wither and die. But if you've got longer grassy areas that are there all year round, then they're absolutely going to keep things cooler. They're going to last better because of the cooler temperatures. They're shading the ground out, so keeping the ground cooler, keeping the roots cooler. So it is just absolutely a fantastic idea to have some longer grass within your garden. So I really hope this video has helped explain the best way to manage your garden. Remember, cut some areas around your no-mow summer area, cut some little pathways so that you can access your herbaceous borders for maintaining them, and it looks purposeful. If you're still worried about what your neighbours are going to say, then don't be, because your neighbours are then going to look in, see the mown path down to your shed. They're going to see the mown path around areas of your lawn up to your herbaceous borders, which is suggesting it's purposeful and it's meant to be. So I think that's going to help change minds as well. And in my eyes, it absolutely looks wonderful. And it's why I chose this garden today to make this video, because they are adopting these concepts and I couldn't be happier. It just looks beautiful. And stick around, because I'm going to be doing a full garden tour of this garden. There's a little woodland garden back there that is absolutely delightful when it's not hopefully spitting with rain. It's just started. So yes, a full tour of this garden where I'm working, creating this latest wildlife pond, in a video to come. It really is wonderful. And yes, I really hope that today's video has helped dispel the myth that having mown lawns is a sign of wealth. Actually, I think having areas of longer grass is soon going to be the new norm. It's soon going to be a sign of intelligence, a sign of a conscious human being who wants to do everything they can to preserve the natural world. And that's what a mosaic of habitats is all about. That's what a no-mow summer is all about. And I really hope you have enjoyed this video and taken something from it. I hope I've explained how you can then manage these spaces. If you want to know the best times to manage a meadow, how to manage your wildflowers, then do check out previous videos I've done on the channel, which explain in full detail as to how you can manage these spaces. But I really hope I've covered everything that you've been mulling over in your head before undertaking either a no-mow May or a no-mow summer, or how to manage them, when to manage them, and all the rest of it. And thank you ever so much for watching. As always, do feel free to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. It goes a long way to helping these videos reach a broader audience, and of course helping make more habitats for wildlife. So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned, lots more videos to come on all the ways in which you can help wildlife in your own garden. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.